come here to dance, and I didn't come here to talk. I just came here for the whiskey, and I'll be here till last call, 'cause I'm a blue red man.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Free Beer Tomorrow, We Promise podcast, where we take you behind the scenes of extraordinary lives with some amazing people. I'm your host, Joe, and with me today is my co-host, Boomer. Boomer, how you doing, girl?
I'm doing good, Joe. How are you?
Good. You look great. You look fantastic
Thank you.
as always.
Oh, thank you. So do you.
Well, okay, thanks. I don't have any money to borrow you.
It might be the hat.
Okay, yeah, it's a nice hat. I like it.
I know.
All right, good deal.
Yeah.
So everything good in your world?
Everything's really good. Yes, absolutely.
Good.
I'm excited for the show tonight, and I'm excited to hear more about what we're going to talk about.
All right. Do you know what we're going to talk about tonight?
I have a little idea, but I want to hear from you.
All right.
What we've got going on tonight.
Well, all right. Here we go. Today, folks, we're going up, literally. Our guest this morning, wherever you're listening, is a seasoned pilot, a captain with 24 years of commercial flying experience. From near-miss situations to mysterious things spotted above the clouds, today's episode is all about the lifestyle of a pilot, the unexplainable, and maybe, just maybe, some stories that never make it to the gate. Now buckle up, everyone. Your captain is aboard. Captain Glenn, how you doing, sir?
Hey, how are you? We're doing great.
Good. Oh, we're doing great as well. We are super excited you're here with us, and we greatly appreciate you spending some time with us.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm just waiting on a free beer. I know it's going to be here tomorrow, so I'll be hanging out for a while.
We promise. We promise. That's perfect.
Always free beer tomorrow.
That's it. All right, so let's get started here. Captain Glenn, you have 24 years as a commercial pilot, correct?
That is correct.
What in the world made you get into flying?
Well, for me, it was just a childhood dream. It all started when my father used to drag me around all those air shows. And then when I was about ready to graduate high school, me and my dad were fishing on the banks of the Hiwassee River, and all of a sudden an F-4 flew by at about 150 to 200 feet above the water, and I said, I want to do that.
Man,
that
cool.
looked cool.
Yeah.
So I started the pursuit, and I've been flying since I was 18. So when I first jumped into a plane, and I'm now 58, and I've been flying ever since, but commercially for 24 years.
Cool. Very cool. Boomer, go ahead. I know you got some good questions.
I'm interested though. So you knew from that early age that you wanted to be a pilot. So I'm curious because I have a lot of friends that are pilots, and I find that a lot of them, there's some family history. So is there anyone in your family that also flew, maybe military or also in like the commercial space as well? Or are you the first?
I am the first and the only one.
Wow. That's awesome. I love that you knew early on that that's what you wanted to do. That's so cool. So
it's a childhood dream.
I am curious though. So 24 years of experience. I'm curious on like just a typical day, how it is now. Because now you're a seasoned captain with a commercial airline. So what is a typical day like for you?
Well, a typical day really runs in what we call a pairing, and it winds up being like a 4 to 5 day trip.
Okay.
So the more experience you get later in your career, you'll be flying less trips a day, or what we call less leg. So a typical day would be, say, we might go from our hub down to Cancun and then back to the hub, and then we may go to, say, Louisville, Tampa, Orlando to an overnight, then come back the next day and go back to our hub and then fly out to the West Coast. And we'll stay out at the West Coast for about 28 hours, and then we'll fly all night long on day 3 and wind up back in our base on day 4 about 6 in the morning. That's my typical. kind of
That's
work.
your typical. So when you're not working, what does your downtime look like?
Usually I can get anywhere between 2 to 6 days off in a row between
Okay.
trips.
Oh, nice.
And then, of course, spending time raising a family, riding the Harley, try
Of
to get to the
course.
river, maybe do a little fishing, downtime like that. I do a lot of hunting and fishing in the fall of the year. So that's how I kind of unwind from the rat race
Yeah.
of a busy airport.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. So I'm gonna go back to, let's see, you've been a commercial pilot for 24 years. Obviously, you have to fly something before you get to the commercial airlines, right? You have to train. You have to take. What do? You take pilot lessons. Kind of walk us through that. How do you get to where you're at today? From watching, a military jet fly over when you're fishing.
Well, it was always kind of interesting because my senior year in high school, I was taking aerospace, and I can remember my teacher telling me I'd never be a pilot and I never amount to anything looking out the window. Well, so
Oh,
far, I've proven him wrong
I was just gonna say he
because
can
I look
suck
out the
it
window every
or she.
day and I get paid to do my hobby. But
Great.
back then, we were required to go out and do um, discovery flights in his class. And that's where it all started before I ever got out of high school. So, me and a friend of mine did our discovery flights together. And I just kept going and plugging away at it and said, you know what? I think I'd like to make a living at this because I enjoy it. And why should I work for a living when I can do my hobby for a living?
Oh, that's
So that's how I got into it, and that's how it all started. But it wasn't easy because I went to college to try that route. I wanted to get into the military, but I had astigmatism. They wouldn't let me in. So I started doing the rest of it on my own. I went to driving an 18 wheeler for several years, saved up some money, went to flight school in Florida, got all my stuff done, and then started picking up little odd jobs here and there, building my time. And then years later, I landed a job with a place out of Nashville, Tennessee, flying a small 19-seat turboprop. And then I went on
okay.
to fly all the CRJ regional jets, the 200, the 700, and the 900s. I used to fly those. And
Okay.
now I went to another major carrier flying a 190, and then now the Airbus family.
Okay. Roughly on a typical flight nowadays for you, how many people are on your flight typically?
Well, it depends on the aircraft that I'm flying, but like the other day I came in from Seattle, I had 197.
197. Okay. So, do you remember the first time that you were in charge of an airplane that had 197 souls on it? The first takeoff and your first landing? Because there's got to be a
Oh
first,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, there's always a first,
Were
but
were you
I can I
nervous?
can I can make one better. No, I was never nervous at that point in my career because I'd already made it through all those steps way prior to doing that with that big of an airplane. Where I started at, and this is going to be kind of surreal because when I first started my airline career, it wasn't long after that. Guess what happened? 9/11. So I went back on the sidelines for just a little bit longer.
Wow. Okay. Hmm.
So then
Cool.
I got to pick up again, start it all over again. But there's times along the way it was a struggle. And then there came a time in 2007 when they were hiring pilots with almost zero experience almost. All they
Hmm.
had was a multi-commercial license. And that's what she was asking about a little while ago. So when you go in to start learning to fly, it takes 40 hours to get to the point where you can get signed off to get your private license. And then I think it was 125 hours, you can go for an instrument rating. Then after you've accumulated 200 hours, you can go for a commercial rating. And then anytime after that commercial, you can go for your multi-engine rating. So all this stuff, you have to keep paying out money and time trying to build up your hours to a certain point. But an airline won't touch you at 250 hours, but with 1,500 hours, they will. And when I got my first job, I had to have right at 2,000 hours of
Hmm.
flying.
And hours are actual flying time, right? Not simulator
Yep.
time or something like that.
Nope. It's actual flying time.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing.
And now I sit there and I look and I have almost 19,000 hours. And
That
that's
was going to be
like
my next
over
question.
3 years. in a plane in the sky I've spent in my life.
And how much longer do you have in the captain's chair?
6.5 years until they kick me out at 65. It's not a
And
voluntary kick out. So say my birthday would be March 10th. March
okay.
9th will be the last day that I get to fly for an airline.
Wow.
And you
Okay.
don't have a
So once you
choice.
turn 65, you're done in a 121 experience airline.
Wow.
What? Why is that? What's the meaning
I
behind
think
that?
the FAA looks at it like the possibility of having medical problems in the sky increase at
Okay.
65. They already have stuff for the long haul guys that if you're, within I think it's 62 to 65, then they pair you with a younger guy. I mean, they're always looking at safety.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So it's
that's good.
always safety first.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I want to switch gears a little bit because on several episodes we've sort of gone and towed the line of talking about just different phenomenon, just different things that are out there in outer space and just what people have experienced. So we are very curious to know if you've seen or witnessed anything that you can tell us about.
It's the same question close friends of mine ask me all the time. They're all the time coming up to me and saying, "Hey, tell me what's really out there. I know you've
Yeah.
seen something. Tell me. Tell me what it is."
Yes.
And for the
Yes. Let's hear it.
longest time, I never had anything to tell them. I just look at them and go, "Yeah, I reach over and I turn on that contrail button so I can pollute the sky, put out all that poisonous gas." But that's not true. We don't have a button.
Okay, that's good.
But I did have the one story that I used to tell them all the time. I said, I remember going from Philadelphia to Akron, Ohio, and we were at about 33,000 feet that night. And I remember telling my captain I was flying with, I says, "Hey, look at those idiots over there. They left their landing lights on up here in altitude." And he was reading a magazine, I think, and he looked over and said, "Oh, look at those idiots." And he just went back to doing his thing. And I said, about 5 minutes later, I says, "Man, those are some really bright lights."
Hmm.
And he looked again, and about that time, this thing went whizzing by, and you could just see sparkles and like flames coming out the back.
Wow.
And he just looked at me, and he took his glasses off, and he said, "Partner, you ain't never gonna see that again." Put his glasses back on and started reading.
It was almost like he has seen something similar before, like it was
Yeah.
commonplace.
So
Yeah.
it made you wonder. So,
Mm-hmm.
of course, it wasn't long after that, you hear other guys on the radio, "Hey, y'all see that?" "See what?"
Yes.
"I just seen a thing go through the sky." "Yeah, we've seen it too." "What is that?" "I don't know." "Cleveland Center, do you see anything?" "No, we don't have anything over in your area." Nobody knows what it is. And that's usually how those things go.
Mm-hmm.
Within the past year, we've had a couple of those instances happen. One of them up around Seattle, one of them up around the north end of Texas and Oklahoma, and then one out towards Utah. But nothing over like White Sands or over Roswell, New Mexico. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
over there, and that's where you think the hot spot would be.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So
And they all start out. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I said they all start out the same way with, "Hey, do you guys see that?" Every one of them
Yeah.
starts out with that.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, so I know, you're in the cockpit and you're talking to, the person next to you, right? Did he see it or what is that? But do pilots talk amongst themselves, outside of the plane about what they've seen or what they've
Oh
maybe have
yeah,
experienced?
yeah. When you see stuff like that, like I was flying with someone the other day, and I was telling them, I says, "Hey, I'm going to do a little thing on a podcast for some folks talking about things they've seen." And they're like, "Man, I wish I could see some stuff. I know some people that fly over to Hawaii all the time, and
Yeah.
just as soon as they get off the coast, it's like all the time they see crazy stuff." and it looks like
Wow.
stuff glowing in the water and then shooting up through the sky. And I said, well, I
Wow.
ain't never seen anything like that. I says,
Yeah.
but I have seen a few things. The one thing over in Seattle, there was another guys that were asking about it, and we just so happened to see it as well. And it was put off with, oh, that was a thing from SpaceX returning to Earth. That's what we've seen. And it was funny that day because when we were sitting down on the curb in Seattle, we were talking about, hey, did you guys see that? Yeah, that was us that reported it. I said, okay, that was us talking about it as well, along with everybody else. And they're like, what was that? And it's like, I don't know what it was. And I
Yeah.
says, yeah, but they said it was just something that was probably from SpaceX where they were running that test and it was returning to Earth. I thought that was a little
Interesting.
far-fetched, but that was the
Yeah.
explanation we got. And
Yeah.
the other two, I got zero explanations for, except for we're not showing anything in that area. That's all that we got back out of them.
Right. So do you
You know,
think, I mean, so again, you've been flying a really long time, but do you think that there's been more just open communication amongst the flight crew and the pilots more recently about what they've seen or maybe what they think is really out there than maybe 10, 15 years ago?
I don't think there's any more than what there really has been. I think a lot of guys are more reluctant to talk about it because it's like, you seen what? What were you smoking? Are you
Yeah.
drinking?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
You'd be the next one in line for
You
a
know,
drug test.
Yeah,
yeah.
we don't want those airlines thinking that somebody, is having an issue.
Well, I mean, when we were flying out over Oklahoma that one night, I, it looked like a black Goodyear blimp at 30,000 feet.
That's
It did.
wild.
It looks like something at night that you think there's not a light on the thing.
Right.
You can see the outline of it plain as day. And you'd
Yeah.
think that there was nothing there except for there's flames coming out the back.
The unexplainable.
At
Yeah.
What
30,
is that?
at
That's not
30,000
good.
feet.
That's not the Pillsbury Doughboy going through the sky. It's not the Goodyear blimp because they don't look like that at night. They do have lights on them and they're never up that high. So
They're never
what
up
the
that high. Right.
Yeah. So what is that? And then you hear other guys say, "Hey, did you see that?" Yeah, but I don't know what it is. I don't know either. You know.
Yeah.
You
Hey,
mean
Fort
other
Worth,
other
have you done
pilots?
anything over here in this sector that you see at about 40,000 feet? No, I'm not showing anything. Okay, so you're basically telling me and my buddy and these other guys, we don't see anything. Okay, I got it. I'm with you. I play
That's
that game, but I know what I just saw,
yeah.
but I don't know what it is.
That seems to be a
So
common answer for a lot of people that we've already
it's
talked to.
Yeah.
They,
it's very common
yeah.
because it's like when you fly over White Sands when you're going out west in New Mexico, that's a military operation area. And one of the things that they love to do to us late at night is to GPS jam us. Because what they're doing is they're practicing jamming like other aircraft or missiles that would be inbound to kind of take them off their target where they can't use GPS for targeting. And it
Oh.
sets up bells and whistles in our plane. They don't knock it all out, and I think it's because they're not allowed to. But if they wanted to, they could knock out all of our navigation if they wanted to. But it gets aggravating, and when it happens, you can 9 times out of 10 you can key the mic and say, "Hey, is White Sands active tonight?" And they'll usually tell us if it is. But there's one time that they told us, and everybody was complaining that was going through there, and it was every carrier out there. I don't care if you flew for JetBlue, Southwest, Delta, American, United. Everybody was complaining about being jammed. And the controllers kept saying, "Look, I've already called more than once. Nothing's going on. Nothing's going on." And 20 minutes later, guess what? "Hey guys, we're wrong. They are active tonight."
Oh.
But that's after 20 minutes of bells and whistles going off in the plane, and you keep
Right.
having the cancel button.
Well,
So it does get aggravating.
that was going
So
to be
do
my
they always
question.
tell the truth? I don't think it's that they don't want to tell the truth. I don't think they always know what the truth is when they see it because they're not told everything.
Yeah.
So these are the air traffic controllers, right? Giving you this info?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
they actually, when there's a military operation area, they all know it. And, they navigate us around it usually. But on nights like that, that's when they do their thing. They let us come through and they just pick us out on the radar and start playing with us.
So
It's
when you're flying,
fair.
like the first time that happens, I mean, obviously it's happened a few times to you, right? More than
Oh yeah,
once.
you think you're losing your navigation system is what
That's
you
what
think.
is that not concerning? That's concerning to me.
It is. It is.
But you seem
And
real
the
calm
company all
about it.
puts bulletins, the company puts bulletins out on it, and they're doing a little bit better at letting us know that it's going on.
Okay.
But there for a while, I mean, years ago, it was like it's some kind of big secret. It's not quite that way anymore. And that's the only thing that's down around that Roswell area where everybody talks about the little green guys are running around. Yeah, I don't know about all that, but then again, are
Right.
we the only ones here? I mean, if God or somebody put us here, does that mean there's not somebody somewhere else? I couldn't say that for sure.
So, Captain
not
Glenn,
believing.
what do you think is going on? Are you a believer? Because it sort of sounds like you are.
Do I think? Well, I just don't think that we can be the only ones here.
Yeah.
If we're here living our lives, look at what all's out there that we haven't even found yet.
Mm-hmm.
We are trying to explore all those places in space. Maybe somebody else is already out there and they're a lot more advanced than we are. I don't know. I can't say. Maybe we are, maybe we're not.
Yeah.
But you've seen things.
I was just going to say, you've seen things that sort of solidify that there is something else out there.
Well, there's stuff out there I can't explain, and that's why you kind of hesitate to tell friends and stuff about it because they just look at you like, you're crazy, man. Quit smoking that.
Yeah.
But like I said, this past year, I've called a buddy of mine 3 times. Says, well, all right, I'm going to tell you what I saw. He's like, oh, hold on. Let me make sure I hear this. Let me go in the other room. He wants to hear about it. Because it's like an inquiring minds that want to know. I mean, I'm not up there half asleep. I'm not up there daydreaming, and you see this stuff usually late at night.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like when Starlink goes flying by. When you see Starlink at night, dude, it looks like you're going to hit it. That's how low in the sky it looks like it's going to be when you on it. But it just is so bright and it starts coming right at you and you're like, wow, that thing is massive.
Very cool.
So you don't get to see that stuff every day. And people, they're on the ground. I mean, yeah, you can see stuff like this with the naked eye. But like that time in up north of Dallas, I was sitting there looking the next day. I did nothing but sit there on Google looking for stuff of if anybody reported anything, and the Dallas weather meteor FAA people, oh yeah, we had this meteor shower, blah blah blah. That's what people seen in the northern sky. I'm like, well, that's not what I see in the northern sky. I can promise you that.
So, if you report something like what you see, who do you report it to?
Oh, we just tell air traffic controllers.
Okay. You think they take it any further?
I would say that they make notes of it because it's usually not just one of us when that happens. It's usually several people that are questioning.
So no one's ever really followed up with you after you've reported something?
No.
No.
And you got to remember, when we're going out through there, we're usually, depending on the direction we're going, say I'm going out at 30,000 feet. Well, there's another guy going the opposite way at 31,000. We're going to have 1,000 feet of separation. So when I stop seeing something, they're going to start seeing something.
Right.
We're usually 20, 30 miles in trail of each other. So there's a lot of stuff there that when I see it, the other guys are going to see it. It's the same thing with Starlink. It's like, hey, man, if you're over BNA, which is Nashville, got a good view of Starlink tonight. People will give you a heads up or they'll say, hey, can you see this over here? Or it does happen that way.
Yeah. I know you mentioned, oh, sorry, Joe, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you mentioned, Starlink and how close it gets. And I'm just curious, is that like one of the scariest moments in the cockpit, or do you have a story of, like a scary moment while you were flying?
No, I can't really say I've ever been scared while flying. Yeah, I see people go by pretty close. We have the right separation with each other. Um, sometimes it looks like it would be a good photogenic moment. I've passed people, there are 1,000 people below me. It's like, hey, I can almost wave to them out the window.
I love
So
that.
I'm just
Because,
gonna.
when you see your company plane down there below you 1,000 feet, I am that guy that's going to go just a little bit faster because we're going to beat them. Just
I
want to
want
put that out there.
I want to bring up
It's always a race. That's how passengers are on the plane.
yes,
That's at least how
always a
I am.
race.
I'm
Yes.
like, if they can get us to that next gate even faster, that's awesome. If that wind stream is for us today, that's even better.
So
Oh, all you got to do is start looking out the window more, and you'll start seeing a lot of people going by that you're like, oh my gosh, that's really close.
but the windshield is the best view though.
Yes,
Totally.
we get to see. Yeah, we get to see them coming. Plus, we have an instrument in the cockpit where we know they're coming. And generally, when they're about 20 to 30 miles out, which gives us about a 3-minute closure, the ATC guys will tell us, "Hey, you got traffic at 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
1,000 foot above." You
So
know, they don't usually tell us it's a 737 or it's an Airbus or whatever.
real quick personal story. I don't know when the 1,000 foot separation came in. It hasn't been that long. It used to be 2,000 feet, correct? Maybe 6, 7, 8 years.
No, it's been 1,000 foot for a long time. And if you're VFR, they do it at 500 increments. So it's always been east is least and west is best, and that's how you always remembered your altitudes.
Mm.
Okay.
So if you're flying west, say you're going to be at 30,000 feet because you're going west. West is best, even. East
Okay.
is least. It means an odd, so it means you're going to go at 31, 33,000 feet kind of thing.
So
So it all depends on your compass headings of what altitude you're going to be flying at.
okay. When I was flying with the race teams, I used to travel with NASCAR teams, and I had some of the pilots that flew us around in a RJ. They would let me sit up there with them in the front a lot of time, especially like going out west. And the first time that I was sitting in the jump seat and I was watching the instruments, and I saw another aircraft coming at us, and I'm going to say we were at 30,000 feet, and they were at 31. I like to shit myself when that thing flew over the top of us. I'll just tell you. Because, like you said, it's amazing how close you are. It's incredible.
Well, it is, and sometimes you just give them the one finger salute. If it's like Southwest, you got to give it to them, or Delta. You know,
And I'm telling
because Delta. You know what that stands for, right? Don't expect luggage to arrive.
oh my God.
Oh,
Wow. Love it.
So you got to
Love
look
it.
at the little.
You heard it. You heard it here, folks.
that's it. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh no,
All
they're all
right.
great companies. They're
No,
all
that,
good. They're
that's
all good airlines out there. People, that's another question people always want to know. If it's not what have you seen out there, they all want to say, what is the best airline to fly? You know what I tell them? The cheapest one that gets you there.